Okay, everybody. Sorry, turning off that loud fan because it's not so hot. So guess who has a torn meniscus in her right knee? Me. All right. So I just came back from an ultrasound of my right knee, specifically to measure how big my Baker's cyst is. And I live in a bilingual place. I live in a multilingual place, which is really interesting sometimes because, we can sneak eavesdrop on people who don't think you know the other language. And I do have an accent. So I speak English and French. And the irony is that my mother is French from France, but because she emigrated to the United States as a child, she lost her French. I mean, she kept her French at a very barely functional child level, and as she grew with her parents, right? But then she emigrated to Quebec, and when I was born, and so she picked her French back up. But while I was a young child, she was more comfortable in English. And so my mother tongue, my first language, is English. And so I do have an accent. I have an English accent when I speak French because I only learned French in school. And, well, I don't always have an English accent when I speak in French. Sometimes I have a Moroccan French accent because my first French teacher was Moroccan, and my mother insisted that I not pick up the local French accent, the Quebecois accents. There's several actually. They're quite different from Parisian French or countryside French from France. They're very different. And almost not understandable, right? Like I really have to let go of my preconceived notions and sink into the moment and into the flow of the conversation and get used to how each individual speaks. And then after about 5 or 10 minutes, I can really start to follow. So that's how different it can be in some places. In any case, so the ultrasound technician was asked me if English was easier because my accent comes out, and I'm like, oh, okay, certainly. In a medical situation, I'm like, all right, fine. Even though English is not dominant where I am, and it's socially a lot more polite and easier to begin in French. When a French person, a predominantly French-speaking person, hears the English accent, then out of politeness, they will offer to speak in English, right? So, yeah, so that's what happens. And this time I said, okay, it's medical, it's about me, so I will continue in English. And well, the technician needed to get the radiologist to double check what she was seeing. This has happened to me often because I'm a freak of nature, right? Having Ehlers Danlos means that I'll often show up in clinics to have some whatever done, imaging of any kind done. And when something is found, they're like, what? I've never seen whatever. Okay? That's the reaction. And then they go and get the chief doctor to be like, what the hell am I looking at? And so he spoke to her in French, and I was listening, and he was very free with his words. He was like, this is a giant thing, it's never gonna go away. But he also taught her all the signs to look for when you have a giant cyst, but no obvious signs of injury to any of the surrounding tissues. And then he was like, that means there is a tear in the meniscus because they can't see the meniscus directly. And then he showed her all the spots. So now I know I have a torn meniscus that is causing the fluid to pour into wherever it can go, and it's causing the Baker's cyst, all right? And because I have Ehlers Danlos syndrome, I can arrive at an ultrasound after waiting for 6 months without any pain medication, with a giant Baker's cyst that the ultrasound technician's never seen something this big, all right? and then has to go get the radiologist. That's an Ehlers Danlos thing, all right? You can have a sports injury from standing up and being still. For real, this really happens. It is happening to me all the time. And that is one of the ways that I have constantly been gaslighted, because when I have a fall or I feel something go out of place and come right back in, so as a subluxation, I'm like, oh no, this joint fell apart, but it snapped back together, but I'm now hurting. That means go to the hospital. When I go to the hospital, and because I'm super hyper mobile, they can't find the signs of inflammation, stiffness, or whatever. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do, does not stabilize the joint, doesn't look swollen, doesn't look bruised, doesn't look anything. It just went floop poop, like nothing happened, like you pulled an elastic, went right back. Now, my ankle, when I was a kid, used to do that like 15 times a day. Every time I sped up the pace, anything more than a walk, ankles out, gallop on the ground. So I don't run because it's dangerous. But I couldn't prove my sprained ankles because it is over the years of flopping out 15 times a day, and I'm not exaggerating, that gradually the damage is done. And so gradually over the years, I all of a sudden have an ankle that is all scar tissue and nothing can be done about it. It doesn't flop as much anymore, but I can't use it either. And the same thing is now happening to my knee. It's like, it's impossible for me to prevent the wear and tear on my body because I can't prove injury when it happens until it's too late. Until it's so late that it's just like out of nowhere. And that is the proof that daily living for someone whose body is made out of the delicate stuff that Ehlers Danlos syndrome makes is not meant, this body is not meant for the daily wear and tear of the normal body. I might look okay, but how ripped up and damaged do I have to be to prove that I am made of finer, more delicate cloth, right? All right, so I'm relieved that I didn't actually have any needles to deal with today. And I am also very happy to find out that the ligament itself is okay. But the meniscus is a nightmare. The meniscus, it's not good. All right. Anyway, I think the next step is draining the cyst. And if it comes back, which it will, obviously, because I have an EDS and an arthritis knee with hardly any meniscus left, right? Then it's surgery to remove it. So, knee adventures for the next year or so. All right, I'll keep you updated as I get more info. Thank you for your time. Actually, I really mean that. I mean, thank you for listening, and thank you for learning. And you can apply this knowledge to not judging other people. You can't see from the outside what people are dealing with, right? And we all need to learn this lesson over and over again. All right, I'll speak to you tomorrow. Bye.